Now, Count on 2, live and local in the Lowcountry. This is News 2 at 6.
A prison sentence for a drug dealer who pled guilty for selling fentanyl, which led to the death of a customer. Why this case is the first in a series of messages.
The death of designer Kate Spade renews conversations about mental health awareness. Tonight we speak with health experts about how you can help people who are dealing with this disease.
Good evening, I'm Brendan Clark.
I'm Carolyn Murray. Take a look at the picture behind us right now. Camp Hall groundbreaking. It was held for Commerce Park that's opening up in Berkeley County.
Santee Cooper is developing Camp Hall as a place where employees will want to work. Berkeley County leaders say the park could be home to more than 10,000 jobs.
News 2's Berkeley County reporter Raymond Owens attended the ceremony and explains the goal of this park.
The Camp Hall track is a huge deal here in Berkeley County, 6,800 acres, and they have a lot of interesting things planned for this development. The ground was broken at Camp Hall this morning by local officials as well as the Vice President of Volvo Cars North America and South Carolina's Secretary of Commerce. Camp Hall has about 1,300 acres to be developed, bringing companies large and small to the area. Santee Cooper is developing Camp Hall. Now, they plan to have sort of a village of restaurants, medical facilities, and other things to attract employees to want to work at the site. Nearly 2,000 acres will be preserved land. You'll be able to walk or even bike through the woods during your lunch break. 365 acres of wetlands are being restored. Santee Cooper interim CEO Jim Brogdon says his organization is excited to bring even more companies and jobs to the area through Camp Hall.
Santee Cooper was born to serve an industry. Our very first customer was an industry down in the North Charleston Goose Creek area, an industry that was important to the war effort. World War II was going on at the time. This is a part and parcel of what Santee Cooper has done over the last 80 years.
There's already one developer who says they're going to come here and start working here on the Camp Hall site. But like I said, 6,800 acres, there's plenty of room for a lot more. In the Ridgeville community of Berkeley County, I'm Raymond Owens. Count on 2.
Today, the man who pled guilty for dealing a deadly opioid dose was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Earlier this year, Robert Mansfield was charged with conspiring to possess with intent to distribute fentanyl. In 2016, federal investigators found a package of fentanyl at the JFK airport. It was being shipped to Mansfield's home in Latson from overseas. News 2's Deanne Roberts was live inside the federal courtroom today as Mansfield was sentenced. As Deanne, the victim in this case was apparently Mansfield's best friend.
Yeah, Carolyn, Robert Mansfield says the victim, that's Mike Giacinti's contact name, was saved as, quote, best buds in his phone. They say he says that he met him in Alcoholics Anonymous while they were coping with their addiction. Now, cameras weren't allowed in the courtroom today, but Mansfield says things went kind of left between him and Giacinti when they were trying to help each other stay sober, but developed an obsession with the dark web. This is the website Mansfield used to buy and sell various drugs like bath salts, fentanyl, and more. That obsession grew. He said, quote, "We bought more, sold more, and used more," end quote. He says he recognizes what he did and believes his sentencing is a blessing in disguise. The United States Drug Enforcement Administration says this case shows that people are being affected by the opioid crisis right here in our backyard.
Unfortunately, these stories are being told time and time again across our community, across our state, across our country. And I want to send a message to everyone that if you are using these drugs, you can die. In fact, it's not a likelihood, it's a definite fact.
Both families were at court today but didn't want to go on camera. The victim, Michael Giacinti's family, released the following statement, quote, "Our presence in the courtroom today was honoring Mike's legacy, a true hero who fell victim to the opioid crisis that is sweeping our nation. As a community, we need to be educated on the signs of opiate use. We did not know the signs of a drug that would ultimately take our son and brother's life so suddenly." We hope that this case, resulting in a minimum 20-year sentence, sets the precedence for all future cases involving overdose. Now, according to the DEA, this is the first opioid distribution that resulted in death here in Charleston since the beginning of the nationwide opioid crisis. Once again, Mansfield was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Reporting live in downtown Charleston tonight, Deanne Roberts, Count on 2.
Berkeley County Sheriff's deputies arrested the man you see here, Jerome Thomas. He's facing charges of accessory after the fact of murder in connection to a deadly assault that happened in Somerville. Investigators say Thomas was a tenant of the victim and found to be in possession of the victim's credit cards. Back in April, the wife of 78-year-old Neville Morgan came home and found him beaten. He was taken to the hospital and died as a result of his injuries. If you have information regarding the death of Neville Morgan, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers. The phone number is 843-554-1111.
The Berkeley-Charleston-Dorchester Council of Governments is working to determine where transit will take you. The organization is developing a long-range vision, for transit in the Low Country. Right now, they are hosting a public open house to discuss the Regional Transit Framework Plan. The event taking place at Charleston Southern University. That is where we find News 2 Sophia, Arizona. Sophia, what can you tell us?
Brendan, tonight is the final discussion session for high-capacity transit alternatives for the Low Country. Right now, they're working on a rapid transit system that you could think of as a cross between a railway and a bus route. It would be a bus with rubber tires, but it would run in its own separate designated route to ensure more efficiency and more reliability. Tonight, they're hoping for feedback on their long-range project, which has a goal of 2040, but they have already identified one route, which would span 23 miles from downtown Somerville to downtown Charleston. They hope to have that corridor completed by 2025. Take a listen to the principal planner.
Finding ways for people to not have to ride in their car by themselves and be stuck in traffic. So we've recently instituted Low Country Go, which is looking at carpooling and van pooling, so you can do ride sharing apps. We're doing a park and ride study so people can find places where they can park together and either carpool or ride transit. And of course, looking at these transit corridors to see how we can move the bus faster through the region.
They have already started identifying funding sources for that 23-mile-long corridor. Half of that would be coming from Charleston County's half-cent sales tax. The other 50% would be a combination of federal and regional funds. Tonight's meeting runs until 7 here on CSU's campus. Reporting live in North Charleston, Sophia Arzosa, Count on 2.
People all over the world are mourning the loss of fashion designer Kate Spade.
She was found dead yesterday in her home, an apparent suicide. News 2's Libba Howland has more about how you can help someone affected by mental illness.
Mental illness can take many forms: depression, anxiety, personality disorder. But how can you tell if a loved one may be suffering? Doctors say you should look for a change in their personality or behavior.
They might become more anxious, more worried, really expect worst-case scenarios to take place.
Dr. Yevgeny Gelfand, a psychiatrist with Trident Health, says you might also notice someone letting go of daily activities like hygiene. They may become more pessimistic, less social. That behavior may linger for a while, and sometimes they feel the only way out is death.
The majority of the people throughout their life at some point will think about it not as something to do necessarily, but as an escape from a helpless and frustrating, hopeless situation.
Gelfand says the best way to cope with mental illness is to simply talk about it, especially with a professional.
You know, you can be alone with your thoughts and they can be really troubling, but when you know that someone is there with you to share the burden of that and help you talk things through, it can be helpful.
I've posted more information about suicide prevention on our website, counton2.com. Libba Holling, Count on 2.
The speed limit on Folly Beach is going down. Drivers will only be allowed to go 25 miles an hour. There are currently different speed limits on the island. The new speed limit will begin once you cross the final bridge onto Folly. The new limit goes into effect once the State Department of Transportation installs new signs.
Next on News 2.
Two parents still dealing with the death of their son after an accidental drowning at James Island County Park.
So tonight we investigate what led to his death, why his parents are suing the park, and how safety regulations might have played a part in his death.
And it's now time for our fishing forecast as we're heading out to the fishing holes for tomorrow. Tide will be low at 9:03, high at 3:12 in the afternoon. Got a light southeast wind for you with a 10% chance of rain in the lake and harbor. Water temperature still in the low 80s. Maybe a trip to the beach is in order. Don't forget the shades and the sunscreen with that northerly wind about 5 to 10. UV index very high. Temperatures at the beach staying in the 80s. You're watching News 2 at 6.